Kicking off in Ireland, a major working class protest is taking place in Dublin right now. Let's get straight to our reporter on the front line, Dougie Beattie. Dougie, what's the latest?
Well, you can see behind me here, Martin, the Garda Síochána. The police service have moved in and have made
GB News
made several arrests of these protesters. These are anti-immigration protesters. These are middle-class people. And as you can see, the guards are pushing me up the road here. They want us away from this. And you can see, sorry for the language that's coming here, but you can see what they've done. They've cleared the bridge at the bottom of O'Connell Street by this line of riot police, and they've had enough and decided at 5 o'clock they're going to push them off the bridge in O'Connell Street and push them forward, and there is a lot of anger here at this minute in time.
So, Dougie Beattie, as we were explaining to our viewers earlier on, this has been precipitated by a huge rise in immigration and asylum seekers. Dougie, stay safe there. Someone's giving you grief. I can see that on the front line. 25,000 asylum seekers expected this year, 50,000 since 2019. We're going to cut back to Dougie Beattie shortly. And just to explain, there were 6 arson attacks on a repurposed paint factory just a few miles outside of Dublin at Coolock. And that last arson attack, no one was inside there, was last night. Dougie Beattie, getting back to you, looking a bit frisky on the front line there.
Yes, we are, Martin. I mean, tempers are now starting to kick off. We can see these protesters who are normal people like you and I, Martin. I mean, these are everyday people, every working class people, and they are being pushed up the road by the Garda Síochána because they are saying that their politicians are not listening to them and they want to be heard. They marched up to the Dáil today at that protest to let the parliamentarians there hear what their problems were, and they are now faced with this on the bridge of the police force of the Republic of Ireland. And it won't do them any good, to be honest, on either side, because what will happen here is you will put together a coalition of people who will gather, who will really start to push back against this. And at some point, the government in the Republic of Ireland has to say, we understand what you're saying and we will address it. This is a very bad look for Ireland, as you can see, against its own people.
But has there been any advance towards that, Dougie Beattie? You know, we've spoken to Malachy Steenson in the previous hour. The police are moving you down again the street there. Explain to us what's going on here, Dougie.
Well, Malachy Steenson has basically said to you that they are going to stand in the next election. And the elections in the Republic of Ireland always give the result of a coalition government. And that coalition government is by a few. Now, if they can capture at least 6 seats, it means that these anti-immigration parties will be in government by all other terms, because these are nationalists. These are not Republicans. These are nationalist people. They have no problems with any immigration coming into their country, but they keep on saying it's our culture, it's our religion, and it is our country, and you're more than welcome in, but please do not bring in too many people. That is changing the culture of the country, costing the taxpayers here millions and millions of pounds, and they haven't got the resources or infrastructure to deal with what they've got already. And the answer from the government, as we are very much seeing right now, is not to listen to them, because they went to the Dáil and not one TC Dáiler came out to speak to them. And this is exactly what we're seeing now. This is the government's answer to it. And it's very much what's happening inside the United Kingdom as well, as we've seen in other riots. This will get to a boiling point very shortly, but these people here are saying they're not being heard. The mainstream media are not listening to them and reporting them as racist and thugs, and that, as I can tell you, Martin, is definitely not the case. These are everyday working class people, middle class people, grandmothers, mothers, etc., and this is a response to them.
And Doogie Beattie, we've been reporting on GB News for some time now that scenes such as this, protests such as this, have been precipitated by some very ugly flashpoints. We saw an incident where an asylum seeker went on a knife attack and attacked children and teachers. We've seen an old age pensioner robbed inside her home in this past week. We've seen all sorts of violence on the streets, videos on social media getting millions and millions of hits. The social integration isn't working. We're seeing tented, homeless cities springing up, and all the time, Doogie Beattie, we're hearing of a chronic shortage of housing for the indigenous Irish population who feel absolutely ignored, and worse than that, called fascists and racists and extremists for daring to speak up.
Welcome to Communist Ireland.
Yes, and this, Martin, this is the problem right across the UK. The indigenous population are very much saying, hold on, we pay the tax here, we want to be heard. There is no badness in this, and many people have said about, you know, one-sided reporting, etc. I'm the only camera crew in here, and I can assure you, I am saying what I am seeing, and it is the report that's here. There's no other crews here. They have decided to stay on the other side of the police lines, and very much these people in Dublin, good, hard-working Irish people, are feeling very, very lost at this minute in time.
In fact, Doogie Beattie, the state broadcaster in Ireland, RTE, they were briefing today against this protest. They've taken a very, very firm tone, going with the political establishment, going with the law enforcement establishment, saying that these people are racist, saying that they are the problem. Doogie, can we pan the camera around to get an idea of the size of the crowd? And are you being kettled down the road towards somewhere? I mean, are you going to be forced to a point where there's a confrontation coming up?
Yes, this is an arrest going on now at the minute. There's been several arrests. You can just see through the middle of the camera. They have a man on the ground and they have arrested him. They've handcuffed him and they are now moving. So what they're doing here is pushing in, and then they're selecting people in the crowd to go in and arrest them. And why we are being allowed in here is that very much the Irish people recognise that we have exactly the same problems across the UK, and they're not against the media, but they are against being branded a fascist or a racist for just simply saying what we see. And this is exactly what we're seeing at the minute, and nobody can deny what we are seeing right now.
And Doogie Beattie, you know, these are ordinary, hard-working people who feel exasperated, and it's astonishing, Doogie, it's astonishing that there is not more media there. Why doesn't the Irish media want to tell the Irish citizens' story? Why are they briefing against them? Why are they taking the position that all these people are fascists?
Martin, I've worked in the media for 35 years, and I have never seen it as bad as this, where some members of the media are briefing against, as if it would be an insult to say this on air. But I will say to you again, Martin, we are seeing exactly what is happening right now.
Keep moving or you'll be arrested.
There you are.
Forward.
There you are. I'm going to be arrested for not moving forward. And I mean, this is a main shopping street. This is O'Connell Street in the centre of Dublin. And there, as I've said to you, there's no other media standing where I'm standing.
These are instigating all this.
Hold on,
Peaceful assemble. Under our constitution, we have the right to peaceful assemble here. And these are the ones that are creating the chaos all the time. Same in Coolock, they did the same. I got battle charged by these in Coolock as well. And they're breaking their oath all the time. They're guardians of the peace, and yet what are they doing? They're going against the people. They shouldn't be going against the people at all.
Well, that is some of the opinions that is here, Martin. And it is quite disturbing to see this in Dublin Main Street. I spent many of my years of my life in Dublin. It is a very, very peaceful city, a very liberal city, and it is quite disturbing to see it get to this point.
And Doogie Beattie, it's also heartbreaking in a sense to see people, they just want to talk to politicians, they just want to be heard, they just want a voice, and instead they're being marched down the street like this. Now, you be careful there, Doogie, because I was at a protest at the Cenotaph at Westminster. I found myself momentarily handcuffed just for doing exactly the same job as you're doing there, just reporting the truth as you see it. Make sure we don't get nicked. But where's this going to end, Doogie? I mean, are you being marched down towards a point where there's nowhere else to go, and will there be a confrontation?
Yes, I think that is pretty much what's going to happen. They're trying to herd us down a street here, and then there will be a place where there will be a some sort of arrests at the end of the street, and no doubt at that stage things will kick off a little bit, but it is out of sheer frustration what's going on here. Every crossroads, they're trying to filter out the protesters up left and right, and then they're pushing on again. You can see this now. They are pushing on quite heavily, actually, into it, and going into the crowd at various points, snatch arrests, trailing them through the Garda line, and then carting them off out of the road, and they will face court in the morning. But I can assure you at this point, Martin, there was no violence here at all from these protesters, not any. They tried to sit in the middle of the road, they tried to block the bridge, and here we go again, we're being pushed back once more. So it is bizarre to see this in a democratic society, when what they really went to do today was to go up to the Dáil and talk to the politicians that were inside. And for those politicians to see this happening to their voters is somewhat disturbing.
Dougie Beattie, excellent reporting there from the front line. You know, it's so often the case, these people just want to be heard, and instead they're just being herded. They're being herded down the street, they're not being listened to, and this will not get to the nub of this matter. Excellent reporting there from Dougie Beattie, live from that protest. Ireland is full in there, in Dublin. If anything happens, we'll of course cut back to him. Hope Dougie Beattie stays safe out there. As he said, no violence, but also no communication. It doesn't end well. Now, moving on, new findings from British Future and Ipsos have found that people think asylum seekers make up more than 30% of total immigration when they actually make up around 7%. Well, joining me now to discuss this further is the Research Director for the Centre for Migration Control, Robert Bates. Rob, welcome to the show. And isn't it funny how we've just been live in Dublin? People there exasperated. They're not responding to statistics. They're responding to what they see on their streets. And they're seeing 25,000 asylum seekers going to Ireland, this year, 50,000 since 2019. They're seeing tented cities. They're seeing hotels turned over to asylum seekers when they can't get a home. And now this study is trying to make it, nothing to see here, because there's actually a much smaller minority than we think. Isn't this just a case of the statistics that just don't tell the story? What people are seeing in working class communities, that's what they're responding to.
Well, we'd expect nothing less from British Future. Unfortunately, they seem to have a habit of seeking to delegitimise very, very reasonable concerns that the British public do hold about migration. And I think the illegal migration phenomenon that has gripped Britain and caused chaos over the last 6 years isn't one that you can really quantify with statistics. I mean, yes, illegal migrants perhaps are only 7% of those that are entering the country, but what they do represent is they represent a fundamental assault on British sovereignty. These are individuals about whom we know absolutely nothing. A lot of them could very well have criminal backgrounds we just simply don't know, and they are breaking into our country. And that's costing the British taxpayer over £5.6 billion every single year. And that is coming with also down the track social housing for those that ultimately have their asylum application granted. And then let's not also forget that eventually these people will be eligible for benefits as well. So it might not be the overwhelming majority of those entering the country being illegal migrants, but they represent a very, very pernicious percentage of those. And what they stand for is something that is anathema to what the British sense of fair play actually mandates.
And Rob, also it's missing the point that it's 7% of net almost 1 million. So it's 7% of a huge number. So it's still a huge number. It might be 7%, but it's 7% of a massive number. And it's 138,000 small boat arrivals since 2018. That's the size of a substantial town versus 685,000 net migration legal last year. That's at Nottingham plus a Newcastle. People see their communities changing. They see them changing at a pace. And then reports like this basically try and say, well, what are you complaining about? It's only 7%.
Well, precisely. The proportion would be much, much higher if we had a sane legal migration system. Of course, 1.2 million people entering the country on a legal visa route each year is almost incomprehensible to the mind. You can't really get your head around numbers at that scale. And that is perhaps why people do view the illegal migration crisis as a bigger percentage of those entering the country, because it's a tangible, physical thing that can be viewed. And it really, really does strike a sense of fair play here. I think it's one of those things that, you know, the British people are perhaps more tolerant than most in the Western Hemisphere. But what they feel when they see people breaking into their country is a real sense of injustice. And when they see the whole political establishment working against them as well on this issue, working night and day to keep those that have entered our country illegally on our soil, people are rightly annoyed. People are rightly annoyed, and they will, as such, view it as one of their key issues in the next election if the Labour Party do not grip this. And of course, let's not also forget that we do have between 800,000 and 1.2 illegal migrants, some studies suggest, in the UK anyway. So this isn't a trivial issue. This is a very, very significant issue. And the studies that British Future are clearly trying to conduct here is one that would simply seek to push it to the fringes.
Thanks for joining us there. That's Robert Bates. And just to remind you, live pictures there from the immigration protests in Dublin. They want to be listened to. That's not happening. They're simply being kettled down the street by the police. That's live pictures. We'll go back to, you can see now the police line forming up. Dougie Beattie, GB News reporter, right there on the front line. There were a couple of arrests a moment ago. We'll come back to that for more if and when there is a development.